What makes a man trade everything he knows for a life he never imagined? For Tom Rivers, it started with a scream in the desert. The year was 1876, and San Antonio, Texas, lay heavy under a September sun. Tom Rivers stood before two graves, fresh earth still dark with morning dew. Sarah Rivers, beloved wife; Emma Rivers, precious daughter. Both claimed by fever in the same cruel week while Tom was away scouting for the Union Army. He knelt between the wooden crosses, hat in his weathered hands. The cemetery was empty, except for the wind moving through the mesquite trees. At 32 years old, Tom had seen war, had seen death in all its terrible forms, but nothing had prepared him for this kind of silence. The silence of a home that would never again hear his daughter's laughter, or his wife's voice calling him to supper. "I couldn't save them," he whispered to the graves. "Maybe I can save someone else." He didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. He didn't know that 3 months later he would make a choice that would brand him an outlaw. But on that day, looking at those graves, all Tom knew was that he couldn't stay in a town full of ghosts. 3 months passed like water through a sieve. Tom found work where he could, drifting from ranch to ranch, town to town, trying to outrun the emptiness inside him. Then came the day that changed everything. It was December, cold for Texas. Tom was riding through the outskirts of San Antonio when he heard the shouting. A crowd had gathered near the old oak tree on the Miller property. Tom recognized the scene before he even got close. A lynching party, the worst kind of frontier justice. 3 white men, drunk and mean, had strung up a black man by his neck, his feet barely touching the ground. The man's son, no more than 14, was being dragged toward a second rope. Tom had seen enough. He rode straight into the crowd, his rifle already in his hand. "Cut him down," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd commanded soldiers. The leader of the group was Marcus Donovan, son of the biggest landowner in 3 counties. Marcus was 25, spoiled rotten, and mean as a rattlesnake. He laughed at Tom's command. "Ain't your business, Rivers. These people crossed our land without permission. That's trespassing." Tom raised his rifle. "They were walking to church. That ain't no crime." "It is on Donovan land," Marcus said, his hand moving toward his pistol. Tom never hesitated. He'd learned in the war that hesitation got good men killed. Marcus drew first, but Tom's bullet was faster. The shot echoed across the field, and Marcus Donovan fell, a red stain spreading across his expensive vest. The crowd scattered like quail. Tom cut down the black man, who was still breathing, gasping for air. The boy helped his father to their wagon, while Tom kept his rifle trained on the remaining men. "Go," Tom told the family. "Get as far from here as you can." They went, and Tom knew his life in Texas was over. Within a week, there was a $500 bounty on his head. Murder, they called it. Cold-blooded killing of a landowner's son. The fact that Marcus had drawn first didn't matter. The fact that he'd been lynching innocent people didn't matter. All that mattered was that Tom Rivers had killed a white man to save black lives. And in Texas, in 1876, that was unforgivable. So Tom ran. He ran west, toward the territories, toward the wild country where the law's reach was uncertain, and a man could disappear into the landscape like smoke. Now, 3 years later, in the autumn of 1879, Tom Rivers rode through the Arizona Territory, a ghost of the man he'd been. The land here was different from Texas, harsher, more honest somehow. The desert didn't pretend to be anything other than what it was. Red rock canyons stretched toward a sky so blue it hurt to look at. The sun hung low, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson. Tom rode through a place called Cañón de Oro, east of Tucson. His horse was tired. He was tired. But the evening was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. For the first time in months, maybe years, Tom felt something close to peace. He stopped his horse on a ridge and just looked. The canyon below, the mountains in the distance, the endless sky. That's when he heard it. A scream, high-pitched, desperate, carrying on the dry wind. A woman's scream. Tom's body reacted before his mind caught up. Years of scouting, of war, of survival, had trained him to move toward danger, not away from it. He turned his horse toward the sound, his rifle already in his hands. His heart hammered in his chest as he rode down into a dried-out creek bed lined with thorny mesquite trees. What he saw made his blood run cold. Two men, rough-looking trappers with faces burned dark by the sun and eyes gone mean from too much desert and too much whiskey. They had cornered a young Apache woman against the rocks. Her clothes were torn. Her face was smeared with dirt and blood. She held a small knife in her hand, but Tom could see she was losing strength. The men were toying with her like cats with a mouse. Tom didn't announce himself, didn't give warnings. He just raised his rifle and fired. The first bullet took the taller man in the chest. He went down hard, surprise written across his face. The second man fumbled for his pistol, his hands clumsy with shock. Tom's second shot was just as true. The crack of it echoed off the canyon walls, and then there was silence. Tom dismounted slowly, his rifle still ready in case either man was playing dead. But they weren't. They were done. He walked past them without a second glance and approached the woman. She stood pressed against the rock, her chest heaving, her dark eyes locked on him. She didn't run, didn't speak, just watched him with an intensity that made Tom feel like she could see straight through to his soul. He lowered his rifle carefully, holding up one hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "Are you all right?" She didn't answer. Blood trickled down her arm from a gash just below her shoulder. Her hair had come loose from its braid and hung wild around her face. She looked young, maybe 24 or 25, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with softness and everything to do with strength. Tom took off his coat, the same one he'd worn for 3 years of running, and held it out to her. "Here, you're bleeding." For a long moment she just stared at the coat. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed his for just a second, and Tom felt something pass between them. Recognition, maybe. Or destiny. He couldn't have named it then. "My name's Tom," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "Tom Rivers. You need help." Still she said nothing, but she let him approach, let him examine the wound on her arm. It wasn't deep, but it needed cleaning. Tom retrieved his canteen from his saddle and tore a strip from his shirt. He worked carefully, conscious of every move, trying not to frighten her more than she already was. She winced when he cleaned the cut, but didn't cry out. There was steel in her silence, strength in the way she held herself, even hurt and scared. As the sun disappeared behind the canyon walls, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Tom built a small fire. He offered her jerky from his saddlebag. She ate slowly, watching him with those same intense, dark eyes. "What's your name?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackling fire and the distant cry of a coyote. Then, just when Tom thought she wouldn't speak at all, she whispered one word. Kaya. Her voice was soft, musical, and full of something Tom couldn't quite place. Sorrow, maybe, or strength, or both. Kaya, he repeated, nodding. That's a beautiful name. She looked away, but not before he saw something flicker in her eyes. The firelight cast shadows across her face, making her look both younger and older than she was. They sat in silence for a while, the night settling around them like a blanket. Tom stayed awake while she slept, his rifle across his knees, watching the darkness beyond the firelight. He couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this meeting, meant more than he understood. That his life had just changed direction in a way he couldn't see yet. When dawn came, painting the desert in shades of orange and pink, Kaya spoke again. This time in clear, precise English that surprised him. My home is 2 days from here, in the east, in the White Mountains. Will you take me? Tom looked at her, really looked at her. She sat straight-backed, despite her ordeal, her eyes clear and direct. Whatever had happened to her, she hadn't been broken by it. If anything, she seemed stronger than before, like steel that had been tested in fire. Yes, Tom said without hesitation. Yes, I will. I give you my word. Something changed in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. A promise? A promise to a lady is a sacred thing, Tom said, and he could hear his mother's voice in his own words. My mama taught me that. They rode east as the sun climbed higher, two strangers brought together by violence and chance. Tom's horse carried them both, Kaya sitting behind him, her hands light on his shoulders. She spoke little during that first day, but Tom learned more from her silences than most people said in hours of talking. She told him, in brief sentences scattered across miles, that she was the daughter of a shaman, that she had gone alone to gather healing herbs for her people, as she had done many times before, that the men had come from nowhere, had grabbed her before she could run. Your people, Tom said carefully. They're Apache? Chiricahua Apache, she said, and there was pride in her voice. We hide now. The soldiers came. They killed many. We moved to the mountains where we could be safe. Tom nodded, understanding more than she said. The Apache wars had been brutal, with violence on both sides. The U.S. Army had pushed most of the Apache onto reservations, but some bands still held out, living free in the mountains, staying one step ahead of the soldiers. I lost my family too, Tom found himself saying. My wife and daughter, to sickness, 3 years ago. Kaya's hands on his shoulders tightened briefly. She didn't offer empty words of comfort, and Tom appreciated that. Some losses were too big for words. They camped that night near a creek, the sound of running water a comfort in the silence. Tom built another fire while Kaya gathered plants he didn't recognize. She crushed some between her fingers, mixed them with water, and made a paste that she applied to her wound. You're a healer? Tom asked. I learned from my father. He teaches me the plants, the songs, the ways of helping. She looked at him across the fire. You are running from something. It wasn't a question. Tom considered lying, then decided against it. From the law. 3 years ago, I killed a man. A bad man who was hurting innocent people. But the law doesn't see it that way. And now you run. And now I run, Tom agreed. Kaya nodded slowly. My people know about running, about doing what is right, even when others say it is wrong. She paused, then added quietly, "Thank you for my life." "You're welcome, ma'am." "Not ma'am. Kaya." Tom smiled, the first real smile he'd managed in a long time. Kaya, then. The second day of their journey took them higher into the mountains. The air grew cooler, the landscape changing from desert to pine forest. Kaya sat straighter as they rode, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We are close," she said. "My people will be watching. They will see us coming." "Will they be angry? That you're with a white man?" Kaya was quiet for a moment. "They will be grateful I am alive. What comes after, we will see." They emerged from a stand of pines to find themselves surrounded. One moment the trail was empty, the next, Apache warriors seemed to materialize from the rocks and trees. 6 of them, all armed with bows and rifles, all with their weapons trained on Tom. Tom reached for his rifle, then stopped when Kaya raised her hand. She spoke rapidly in Apache, her voice strong and clear. The warriors didn't lower their weapons, but they didn't attack either. Tom sat very still, acutely aware that one wrong move could end his life. Then an older man stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with deep lines etched into his weathered face. He wore a cloak made of feathers and bone, and his eyes held a depth of wisdom that made Tom feel young and foolish. The man spoke to Kaya, and she answered at length, gesturing toward Tom several times. The old man listened, his sharp eyes never leaving Tom's face. Then he stepped closer, so close Tom could have reached out and touched him. "You saved my daughter's life," the man said in slow but clear English. "You did not hurt her. You brought her home with honor." He paused, his eyes seeming to look through Tom into something beyond. "The spirits have chosen you." Tom frowned, confused. "Chosen me? Sir, I don't understand." The old man, who Tom would soon learn was called Grey Wolf, reached into his cloak and pulled out a feather painted red. He held it up to the fading light, then placed it carefully in Tom's hand. "You are now her sacred husband," Grey Wolf said solemnly. "Not by the law of men, but by the law of our ancestors. The one who saves a soul is tied to that soul forever." Tom blinked, stunned. I was just doing what was right." "And that," Grey Wolf said with the faintest hint of a smile, "is why the spirits chose you." Kaya sat beside her father, and for the first time since Tom had met her, he saw something soft in her expression. She looked at him with eyes that held understanding and something else, something that made his heart beat faster. "In our belief," she said quietly, "when a man saves a woman's life without asking anything in return, without dishonoring her, he becomes sacred to her, not by choice, but by the will of the spirits." Tom looked at the red feather in his hand. It was beautiful, each barb perfectly aligned, the red paint bright against the natural brown. He looked at Kaya, at Grey Wolf, at the warriors who had lowered their weapons, and now watched him with something like curiosity. "I don't know what to say," Tom admitted. "Say you will stay," Kaya said. "1 week, to understand our ways, to see if this bond the spirits have made is real." Tom thought about running, thought about his horse, about the open trail, about disappearing into the mountains where no one could find him. That's what he'd been doing for 3 years, running. But as he looked at Kaya, at her strong, beautiful face, and her eyes that seemed to hold both sorrow and hope, he found he didn't want to run. Not this time. "I'll stay," he said. 1 week. The warriors relaxed completely then. A few even smiled. Grey Wolf placed a hand on Tom's shoulder, and though the old man was smaller than Tom, the gesture felt like a blessing. They walked into the Apache village as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Children ran alongside them, curious and unafraid. Women looked up from their work, whispering to each other. Men nodded in greeting, their faces weathered and strong. Tom Rivers, outlaw and wanderer, walked into a world completely foreign to him. He didn't know then that he would never really leave. Didn't know that the spirits, or fate, or simple chance had given him something he thought he'd lost forever. A purpose, a home, a reason to stop running. As they reached the center of the village, where a fire already burned bright against the coming darkness, Tom looked at the red feather still clutched in his hand. Sacred husband. The words seemed impossible, like something from a story. But as Kaya smiled at him across the firelight, he thought maybe, just maybe, impossible things could be true. The night settled over the mountains, full of stars and smoke, and the murmur of voices speaking a language Tom didn't yet understand. But he would learn. He had a week. And after that, well, after that, he'd see what the spirits had in store. What Tom didn't know, what he couldn't have known as he sat by that fire, feeling something close to peace for the first time in years, was that his past was already riding hard to find him. 5 men, led by a bounty hunter named Elias Cutter, were already on his trail. And Cutter was a man with his own ghosts, his own reasons for hunting, his own kind of sacred promise. But that was tomorrow's trouble. Tonight, Tom Rivers was exactly where the spirits meant him to be. The morning came soft to the Apache village, dawn light filtering through the pines like honey through a comb. Tom woke to sounds he hadn't heard in years, children laughing, women singing low songs as they worked, the crackle of cooking fires and the smell of cornbread baking on hot stones. He sat up slowly, disoriented. He'd been given a place to sleep near the edge of the village, a small shelter made of branches and hides. It was simple but clean, and someone had left a bowl of water and a piece of cloth for washing. Tom used both, scrubbing the trail dust from his face and hands, trying to make himself presentable. When he emerged, blinking in the bright morning sun, he found Swift Arrow waiting for him. Swift Arrow was young, maybe 26, with the kind of lean strength that came from a life lived outdoors. His face was sharp-featured and intelligent, but his eyes held suspicion when he looked at Tom. He stood with his arms crossed, a warrior's stance, making it clear this wasn't a friendly visit. "Grey Wolf says you eat with us," Swift Arrow said in careful English. "Come." Tom followed him through the village, acutely aware of the eyes watching him. Some curious, some wary, some openly hostile. He was the only white man here, and the Apache had every reason to distrust his kind. The U.S. Army had been hunting them for years, killing their people, burning their camps, driving them from their ancestral lands. They reached a central fire where Grey Wolf sat with several other men. The shaman gestured for Tom to sit, and food was brought. Cornbread, venison, and something that looked like berries mixed with fat. Tom ate slowly, grateful but cautious. An older man across the fire, his face creased with lines and his hair shot through with silver, suddenly laughed. "White man looks like rabbit surrounded by wolves." Tom met his eyes. "I am a little nervous, sir, but I'm also grateful for the food." The old man laughed harder, and the tension around the fire eased slightly. Even Swift Arrow's mouth twitched, though he fought the smile. "I am Running Bear," the old man said. "I speak some English, learned from missionaries long ago, before we knew better." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a statement of fact. Grey Wolf spoke in Apache, and Running Bear translated. "He says you will learn our ways. You will work with the men. You will hunt. You will help. This is how we know if spirits chose right." Tom nodded. "I'm willing to work. I'm used to it." "Good," Swift Arrow said, standing. "Then come. We hunt today." The next few hours taught Tom more about humility than 3 years of wandering ever had. The Apache moved through the forest like water, silent and fluid. Tom, for all his experience as a Union scout, felt clumsy and loud by comparison. Every branch he stepped on seemed to crack like a gunshot. Every breath seemed too loud. But he watched. He learned. He saw how Swift Arrow placed his feet, how the other warriors moved with the land instead of against it. By midday, Tom was doing better, and he caught Swift Arrow watching him with something that might have been grudging respect. They were tracking deer when it happened. Swift Arrow had found fresh signs and was moving ahead when Tom heard it. A low, rumbling growl that made every hair on his body stand up. He knew that sound. Mountain lion. "Swift Arrow," Tom called softly. "Don't move." But Swift Arrow had already heard it. He turned slowly, and Tom saw the big cat crouched on a rock ledge above them, muscles bunched, ready to spring. It was magnificent and terrifying, golden eyes fixed on Swift Arrow with predatory focus. Tom's rifle was already in his hands. He'd carried it everywhere, even knowing the Apache didn't fully trust him with it. Now he raised it smooth and steady, sighting down the barrel. The mountain lion leaped. Tom fired. The shot echoed through the trees, and the big cat twisted in midair, Tom's bullet taking it clean through the heart. It fell heavily, landing 10 feet from where Swift Arrow stood frozen, and didn't move again. For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then Swift Arrow looked at the dead lion, looked at Tom, and something fundamental shifted in his expression. "You have good eyes," he said simply, "and steady hands. You saved my life." Tom lowered his rifle. "You would have done the same for me." "Maybe," Swift Arrow said. "Maybe not. But now I owe you. That is our way." When they returned to the village carrying the mountain lion, word spread quickly. Warriors came to look, to clap Tom on the shoulder, to speak words he didn't understand but whose meaning was clear enough. He'd proven himself, not as a white man trying to fit in, but as a hunter, a protector, someone worthy of respect. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and red, Kaya found him sitting alone at the edge of the village. She carried a basket filled with plants and roots. "You did well today," she said, settling beside him. "Swift Arrow told everyone. He does not give praise easily." Tom shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "I just did what needed doing." "That is what makes you different," Kaya said. She pulled a plant from her basket, showing him the leaves. "This is white sage, good for cleaning wounds, for purifying. My father uses it in ceremonies." She handed it to Tom. "Smell." Tom took the plant, inhaling its sharp, clean scent. Kaya watched him with those dark, intelligent eyes. "Will you teach me?" Tom asked. "About the plants? About healing?" Kaya smiled, and it transformed her face. "Yes, and you teach me to shoot better. I saw you with the rifle. Very steady." "Deal," Tom said, and they shook hands like business partners, both of them trying not to laugh at the formality of it. Over the next few days, they fell into a rhythm. Mornings, Tom worked with the men, learning to track, to move silently, to read the forest the way the Apache did. Afternoons, he spent with Kaya, learning about plants and healing, teaching her in return how to handle a rifle properly, how to sight and breathe and squeeze the trigger instead of pulling it. They talked while they worked. Kaya told him about growing up in the village, about the old days before the soldiers came, when her people ranged freely across the land, about her mother, killed in a raid 5 years ago, about the fear that lived in every Apache now, the knowledge that their way of life was ending. Tom told her about the war, about scouting for the Union Army, about the things he'd seen that still woke him up at night, about Sarah and Emma, the family he'd lost, about the day he'd killed Marcus Donovan, and how everything had changed. "Do you regret it?" Kaya asked one afternoon as they sat by the creek, sorting through the plants she'd gathered. "Saving those people?" Tom considered the question. "No. I regret that it cost me my life in Texas. I regret being hunted, but saving them? No, that was right. That was the only choice I could live with." Kaya nodded slowly. "My father says the spirits test us. They put us in places where we must choose between what is easy and what is right. Those who choose right, even when it costs them everything, those are the ones the spirits favor." "Is that what happened with us? The spirits testing me?" "Maybe," Kaya said. "Or maybe the spirits were helping you find your way home." Tom looked at her, at the way the sunlight caught in her dark hair, at the strength in her face and the gentleness in her hands as she worked with the plants. "This isn't my home, Kaya." "Not yet," she said quietly. "But it could be." On the 5th day, Grey Wolf called Tom to his lodge. The shaman's home was larger than the others, filled with bundles of dried herbs, painted hides, and objects Tom didn't recognize, but that clearly held sacred meaning. Grey Wolf sat by his fire and gestured for Tom to sit across from him. For a long while the old man just looked at him, those wise eyes seeming to see past skin and bone into something deeper. "You are troubled," Grey Wolf finally said. Tom nodded. "I don't understand this sacred husband thing. I saved your daughter because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted anything from her." "I know," Grey Wolf said. "That is why the bond is sacred. If you had wanted something, if you had saved her for reward or for power over her, the spirits would not have chosen you. But you asked for nothing. You expected nothing. You simply did what your heart told you was right." "But I'm not Apache. I'm not part of your world." "The spirits do not care about such things. They care about the heart." Grey Wolf poked at the fire with a stick, sending up sparks. "3 nights ago, I had a vision. I saw you and my daughter standing between 2 worlds, 1 foot in each, and I saw that you would be tested, that your choice would determine not just your fate, but the fate of many." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of test?" "That the spirits did not show me, but they showed me this. You are meant to be here, whether you believe it or not, whether you understand it or not. You are exactly where you need to be." Tom wanted to argue, to say that destiny and spirits were just stories people told themselves to make sense of random chance. But sitting in that sacred space, with Grey Wolf's ancient eyes on him, and the smoke rising into the gathering darkness, the words wouldn't come. That night the village was quiet. Tom couldn't sleep, so he walked to the edge of the camp, looking out over the dark forest. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Swift Arrow approaching. "You are restless," Swift Arrow observed. "Thinking too much," Tom admitted. Swift Arrow was quiet for a moment, then said, "I did not want to like you. White men have brought my people nothing but death and broken promises. But you are different." "I'm just a man trying to do right." That is what makes you different." Swift Arrow looked out at the darkness. "Kaya is special, not just because she is Shaman's daughter. She is smart, strong, sees things others miss. When she was taken, I thought we had lost her. When you brought her back, I thought you would want something, payment, her hand, something. I don't want anything. I know. That is why I trust you now." Swift Arrow turned to face Tom directly. "But I must tell you something. There is danger coming. Running Bear, he is old man, afraid. He thinks you bring soldiers, bring trouble. 2 days ago, I saw him speaking with stranger in the forest. I do not know what was said, but I do not trust it." Tom's blood ran cold. "A stranger? What kind of stranger?" "White man, rough-looking, the kind who hunts for money." Swift Arrow's eyes were hard. "I think Running Bear has betrayed you. I think he has told someone you are here." Before Tom could respond, they heard a sound. Hoofbeats coming fast through the darkness. Tom and Swift Arrow ran back toward the village, where others were already gathering, weapons ready. A rider burst into the firelight, his horse lathered and wild-eyed. The rider was young, barely more than a boy, and he spoke rapidly in Apache. Tom couldn't understand the words, but he understood the fear in them. Grey Wolf stepped forward, his face grave. He spoke to the boy, then turned to address the village. His words were met with worried murmurs, and Tom saw people looking at him. Kaya appeared at his elbow, her face pale. "5 white men are camped 5 miles from here. The boy saw them. They have guns, many guns, and they are asking about you." Tom's worst fear realized. "Cutter," he breathed. "Who is Cutter?" "A bounty hunter, the best there is. If he's here, he won't stop until he has me." Tom looked around at the village, at the children and the elders and the warriors who'd begun to accept him. "I have to leave, tonight. If I go, they'll follow me. They'll leave you alone." "No." Kaya's voice was sharp. "You cannot just leave." "I have to. I won't bring war to your people." "You already are my people," Kaya said, and there was steel in her voice. "You are my sacred husband. If you run, you break that bond. You dishonor what the spirits have made." Swift Arrow stepped forward. "She is right. You run, you are like every other white man who makes promises and breaks them. You stay, you fight beside us, you show you are truly one of us." Tom looked from one to the other, seeing the determination in their faces. He thought about running, about saddling his horse and disappearing into the night. He'd gotten good at running, 3 years of practice, but he was tired of running, tired of being alone. And when he looked at Kaya, at the faith in her eyes, the trust, he knew he couldn't leave. Not this time. "All right," he said. "I'll stay. But we need a plan. Cutter is smart and he's mean. He won't just ride in shooting. He'll try to draw me out, try to force my hand." Grey Wolf nodded. "Then we prepare. We make ready. And when he comes, we show him that this village does not abandon its own." The rest of the night was spent in preparation. Warriors checked their weapons, gathered ammunition. Women and children were moved to the safest part of the village. Tom worked alongside Swift Arrow, using his military knowledge to help position defenders, to identify the best places for ambush if it came to that. Kaya stayed close to him, helping where she could, her presence a steady comfort. As dawn approached and they finished their preparations, Tom found himself alone with her for a moment. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Terrified," Tom admitted. "Not for me, for you. For your people. I've brought this on you. "No," Kaya said firmly. "The men who hurt me brought this. You only saved me. There is difference." She reached out and took his hand, her fingers strong and warm. "I told you the spirits do not make mistakes. You are here for reason. Maybe this is the reason. Maybe you are meant to help us stand against men like Cutter." Tom looked down at their joined hands. "What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are stronger than you know," Kaya said. "You just have to believe it." As the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Tom stood with the Apache warriors, ready to face whatever came. He thought about the red feather Grey Wolf had given him, now tucked safely in his pocket. Sacred husband. He still didn't fully understand what it meant, but he was beginning to. It meant standing when you wanted to run. It meant fighting for people who'd become family in just 5 days. It meant believing that maybe, just maybe, you'd found the place you were always meant to be. In a camp 5 miles away, Elias Cutter woke to the same sunrise. He cleaned his rifle with practiced efficiency, his mind already working through the day ahead. Tom Rivers was close. He could feel it. And when he found him, justice would be served. Or at least, what Cutter believed was justice. He touched the locket around his neck, the one holding pictures of his wife and daughters. Gone 5 years now, killed by Apaches in a raid that had destroyed Cutter's world. Every Apache-loving man deserved to pay for that. And Tom Rivers had chosen the Apache over his own kind. That made him guilty. That made him a target. That made him Cutter's path to something like peace. 2 men, both believing they were right, both willing to fight for what they believed in, and somewhere between them, a village full of people who just wanted to live in peace, who'd been driven from their lands and hunted like animals, who'd found in Tom Rivers something unexpected. Hope. The stage was set. The players were in position. And the sun rose on a day that would change everything. The sun climbed higher over the white mountains, turning the morning mist to gold. Tom stood at the eastern edge of the village with Swift Arrow and 2 other warriors, all of them scanning the forest for any sign of movement. The air was still, almost too still, the kind of quiet that came before storms or violence. "You feel it?" Swift Arrow asked, his hand resting on his bow. Tom nodded. "Something's coming. I just don't know what." They'd been standing watch since dawn, taking turns with other warriors to keep eyes on all approaches to the village. Cutter was out there somewhere, 5 men with rifles and hate, and the waiting was eating at Tom's nerves worse than any battle he'd fought in the war. "We should scout," Swift Arrow said, "sitting here like rabbits, waiting for the hawk. This is not Apache way. We hunt, we learn, we prepare." Tom considered it. Swift Arrow was right. In the war, he'd learned that information was worth more than ammunition. Know your enemy's position, his strength, his intentions, and you could win before the first shot was fired. "All right," Tom said, "but we go careful. Cutter's no fool. He might be expecting us to come looking." They took 2 other warriors, young men named Gray Cloud and Running Deer, both skilled trackers. Tom felt exposed the moment they left the village's protective circle, even with the Apache's superior knowledge of the terrain. Every shadow could hide a rifleman. Every bird's sudden flight could signal danger. They moved through the forest like ghosts, Swift Arrow leading, the others following in a line that left almost no trail. Tom had thought himself a decent scout during the war, but watching these men move was like watching water flow. They didn't fight the forest. They became part of it. After an hour of careful searching, they found Cutter's camp in a small clearing near a creek. Or rather, they found where it had been. The fire pit was cold, the ashes scattered by wind. The ground showed signs of 5 horses, maybe 6, and the tracks led north, then east, then seemed to circle back. Swift Arrow knelt by the fire, touching the ashes, rubbing them between his fingers. Cold. They left before dawn, 3, maybe 4 hours ago. Looking for the village, Tom said, his gut tightening. Trying to find our position. Gray Cloud pointed to marks in the dirt. One man went this way, alone. Scout, maybe. Tom studied the tracks, reading the story they told. Cutter was being smart, sending out a scout to find the village before committing his full force. That was both good and bad. Good because it meant they had time. Bad because it meant Cutter was thinking tactically, not just charging in blind with rage. "We need to get back," Tom said. "Warn everyone." They'd barely turned to leave when the sky began to change. Dark clouds rolled in from the west with unnatural speed, turning the bright morning into something that looked like dusk. The wind picked up, bending the tops of the pines. "Storm coming," Running Deer said, and there was worry in his voice. "Big one." Tom had seen desert storms before, but nothing had prepared him for what hit them next. The wind went from a breeze to a roar in seconds, bringing with it sand and debris that stung like hornets. Visibility dropped to nothing. The world became a chaos of howling wind and flying branches. "Stay together!" Tom shouted, but his words were ripped away. He reached for Swift Arrow, felt the warrior's arm, gripped it tight. Then, a gust stronger than the others hit them like a physical blow, and Tom lost his grip. He stumbled, nearly fell, caught himself against a tree trunk. Sand filled his eyes, his mouth. He couldn't see, couldn't hear anything but the storm's rage. He called out for the others, got no answer but the wind's scream. Tom wrapped his arms around the tree and held on, feeling the storm try to tear him away. Lightning cracked somewhere close, the thunder instantaneous and deafening. The smell of ozone filled the air. Time lost meaning. There was only the wind, the sand, the desperate need to hold on. Then, as quickly as it had come, the storm began to ease. The wind dropped from a roar to a moan. The sand settled. Tom opened his eyes, blinking against the grit, and found himself alone in a part of the forest he didn't recognize. "Swift Arrow," he called. "Gray Cloud! Running Deer!" Silence answered him, broken only by the drip of water from the trees and the occasional crack of a settling branch. Tom turned in a slow circle, trying to get his bearings. The storm had disoriented him completely. He wasn't even sure which direction the village lay. Then he heard it. A groan, low and pained, coming from somewhere to his left. Tom pushed through the brush, his rifle ready, and found Swift Arrow lying against a fallen log. The warrior's face was pale, twisted with pain. His left leg was bent at an angle that made Tom's stomach turn, and there was blood on his temple from a gash along his hairline. "Don't move," Tom said, dropping to his knees beside him. "Let me look." Swift Arrow tried to speak, but only managed to gasp. Tom gently examined the leg, and his heart sank. It was a bad break, the kind that could cripple a man if not set properly. The bone hadn't broken through the skin, which was good, but Swift Arrow wouldn't be walking on it any time soon. "Must have fallen when the wind hit," Swift Arrow managed, through gritted teeth. "Tree branch came down. Couldn't get out of the way fast enough." Tom looked around, assessing their situation. They were alone in unfamiliar territory, with no way of knowing where the other 2 warriors were or if they'd survived the storm. Cutter's men could be anywhere, and Swift Arrow needed medical attention soon, or he might lose the leg. "Can you stand?" Tom asked, though he already knew the answer. Swift Arrow tried, got halfway up, and nearly passed out from the pain. He fell back against the log, breathing hard. "No, you must leave me. Go back to village. Warn them." "Not happening," Tom said flatly. He'd left too many people behind in his life. Sarah and Emma to the fever because he'd been away. The black family in Texas to flee alone while he ran. He wasn't leaving Swift Arrow. Tom found 2 straight branches and used strips torn from his own shirt to fashion a splint. Swift Arrow watched him work, his jaw clenched tight against the pain. "This is going to hurt," Tom warned. "Everything already hurts," Swift Arrow said with the ghost of a smile. "Do what you must." Tom worked as gently as he could, straightening the leg and binding the splint tight. Swift Arrow went white, sweat beading on his forehead, but he didn't cry out. When it was done, Tom sat back, his own hands shaking. "You are good healer," Swift Arrow said, his voice weak. "Kaya teaches you well." "Kaya would do better," Tom said, "but it'll hold until we get back." Getting Swift Arrow to his feet was a trial. The warrior was lean but solid muscle, and dead weight besides. Tom finally got him upright, Swift Arrow's arm across his shoulders, and they started moving. Tom used the sun's position, now visible again through the breaking clouds, to navigate what he hoped was back toward the village. It was slow going. Every 100 yards, they had to stop for Swift Arrow to catch his breath, to let the waves of pain pass. Tom kept constant watch, rifle awkward in one hand, while the other supported his friend. His friend. When had that happened? When had Swift Arrow gone from suspicious warrior to someone Tom would die to protect? They'd been traveling for maybe 2 hours when Tom heard voices. White men's voices, speaking English, cutting through the forest quiet like a saw through wood. Tom quickly helped Swift Arrow down behind a cluster of rocks and raised a finger to his lips. Swift Arrow nodded, his face gray with pain, but his eyes alert. Tom crept forward, moving as silently as the Apache had taught him, until he could see through the brush. 2 of Cutter's men sat on a fallen log, both looking as battered by the storm as Tom felt. Their clothes were torn, their faces scratched, and they were arguing in the tired way of men who'd been arguing for too long. "I'm telling you, Jake, we're lost," the first one said. He was younger, maybe 25, with a scraggly beard. "That storm turned us around. We could be 5 miles from camp, or 15. "Boss is going to be mad," the other one, Jake, replied. He was older, harder looking. "You know how he gets." "Yeah, I know. Ever since his family got killed, he ain't been right in the head." Jake was quiet for a moment, then said, "Can't blame a man for that, Pete. Losing your wife and kids to Apaches, watching them die like that, it'd break anyone." Tom's breath caught in his throat. So that was Cutter's story. Not just a bounty hunter chasing money, but a man chasing ghosts, trying to fill a hole that could never be filled. Pete shifted uncomfortably. "But this Rivers fellow ain't Apache. He's just a white man who helped one." "That makes it worse in Cutter's eyes," Jake said. "Traitor to his own kind. I've heard him talk about it at night when he drinks. He thinks any white man who sides with Indians is responsible for what happened to his family. That ain't fair. Fair don't matter to a man with nothing left to lose." Jake stood, stretching. "Come on. We need to find the others before dark. This forest gives me the creeps." They moved off, still arguing, their voices fading into the distance. Tom waited until he couldn't hear them anymore, then crept back to Swift Arrow. "You heard?" Tom asked quietly. Swift Arrow nodded. "This cutter is Broken Man. Broken men are most dangerous. They have nothing to lose, so they risk everything." "Which makes him unpredictable," Tom said, "and that makes him deadly." They started moving again, Tom's mind racing. Cutter wasn't just hunting for the bounty. He was hunting to ease his own pain, to make someone pay for the family he'd lost. That changed everything. A man hunting for money might be reasoned with, might be bought off or scared away, but a man hunting to fill the hole in his soul would never stop. He'd burn down the whole world if he thought it would bring his family back. The sun was sinking toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, when they finally stumbled into the village. Warriors rushed forward, taking Swift Arrow's weight from Tom's aching shoulders. Tom nearly collapsed from exhaustion, his legs shaking, his back screaming from carrying Swift Arrow for miles. Kaya appeared, and the relief on her face when she saw him was like a physical warmth. She ran her hands over his arms, his chest, checking for injuries, even as tears ran down her cheeks. "I thought you were dead," she said. "The storm was so fierce, and when the others came back without you." "I'm fine," Tom said, though he was anything but. "Swift Arrow needs you. His leg is broken." Kaya's expression shifted immediately from relief to focus. She barked orders in Apache, and warriors carefully carried Swift Arrow toward her healing lodge. Tom watched her go, directing everyone with calm authority, and felt that warm feeling bloom in his chest again. Pride, respect, and something deeper that he was almost afraid to name. Grey Wolf appeared at his elbow. "The other 2 warriors returned 2 hours ago. They said you and Swift Arrow were lost. We feared the worst." "We found Cutter's camp," Tom said, and quickly relayed everything. The cold fire, the circling tracks, the conversation he'd overheard between Pete and Jake. "This isn't just about the bounty for him, Grey Wolf. His family was killed in an Apache raid. He blames all Apaches and anyone who helps them." The old shaman's face grew grave. "Then he will not be satisfied with just taking you. He will want blood. Our blood." "Which is why I have to leave," Tom said. "Tonight. I'll draw him away from here. He wants me. He can chase me, but I won't let him hurt your people." "No." The voice came from behind him, sharp and clear. Tom turned to find Kaya standing there, her hands still red with Swift Arrow's blood from setting his leg. Her face was set in lines of determination that Tom was beginning to recognize. "Kaya, he's coming for all of you now, not just me. If you leave, you break your promise," Kaya interrupted. "You break the sacred bond. You prove that you are like every other white man who makes promises and then runs when keeping them becomes hard. That's not fair." "Life is not fair," Kaya said, stepping closer. "My mother was killed by white soldiers. Swift Arrow's brother was killed by white trappers. Running Bear's son was killed by white miners. We have all lost family. We all have reasons to hate. But we do not run. We stand. We fight when we must. We protect our own." "I'm not your own," Tom said, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "You are my sacred husband," Kaya said, and her voice carried across the gathered villagers who'd come to listen. "You saved my life. You have hunted with our warriors. You have eaten at our fires. You have shown honor and courage and mercy. If you are not our own, then what are you?" Tom looked around at the faces watching him. Gray Wolf with his wise, knowing eyes. The warriors, battered from the storm but standing ready. The women holding children close. The elders, stern and weathered. And he saw it in their faces. They weren't looking at him as a white man anymore. They were looking at him as one of them. Before he could respond, Running Bear stepped forward from the crowd. The old man's face was twisted with shame, his shoulders bent, as if carrying a great weight. "I must speak," Running Bear said, his voice cracking. "I have done wrong thing, great wrong." The village went quiet. Even the children stopped their playing. Running Bear stood in the center of the circle, trembling like a leaf in wind. 3 days ago, White Man came to me in forest when I was gathering wood. He knew about Tom Rivers. He showed me silver coins, many coins, and asked where Tom was. I was afraid. Running Bear's voice broke. So afraid. I thought if soldiers come, if fighting comes, whole village dies like in the old days. I thought if I tell him, if Tom leaves, we be safe. A murmur ran through the crowd, anger and disbelief mixing like storm clouds. Swift Arrow, lying on a blanket outside Kaya's lodge with his legs splinted, tried to sit up. "You betrayed us," Swift Arrow said, and there was pain in his voice beyond the physical. "Betrayed Tom, who saved your granddaughter from sickness. Betrayed all of us." "Yes," Running Bear said, and tears ran down his weathered cheeks. "I betrayed honor for fear. I told White Man about village, about Tom being here, about where we hide. I thought I protect tribe, but I only protect my own fear." He looked at Tom, his eyes pleading. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I understand if you kill me. I deserve death." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. Tom looked at the old man, saw the genuine remorse, the absolute terror of what he'd done and what it might cost. He thought about Marcus Donovan, about the fear that had driven those men to hang an innocent family, about the fear that made soldiers kill women and children, about the fear that turned good men into monsters. Fear was the real enemy. Not Cutter, not the Apache, not even death. Just fear, making people compromise their values, betray their friends, choose survival over honor. Tom stepped forward, and every eye in the village followed him. He stopped in front of Running Bear, and the old man flinched, expecting a blow or worse. Tom held out his hand. "I forgive you," he said. Running Bear stared at the offered hand like it was a snake. "You forgive. Fear makes us do things we regret. I understand that better than most. You thought you were protecting your people. You made the wrong choice, but your heart was in the right place." Tom kept his hand extended. "The question now is, what will you do to make it right?" Running Bear looked at the hand, then at Tom's face, then back at the hand. Slowly, trembling, he reached out and gripped it. Tom pulled him up from where he'd been half kneeling, pulled him into an embrace that the old man clearly didn't expect. "You will help us prepare," Tom said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You will help us defend this village. You will stand with us when Cutter comes. That's how you earn back your honor. Not through punishment, but through courage." Gray Wolf stepped forward and placed a hand on Running Bear's shoulder. "Tom speaks wisdom. Fear drove you to betray. Let courage drive you to protect. This is Apache way. This is the way of redemption." Running Bear nodded, unable to speak, tears still streaming down his face. Swift Arrow called out from his blanket, "Tom Rivers, come here." Tom walked over and knelt beside the injured warrior. Swift Arrow's face was still pale with pain, but his eyes were bright and clear. "I have seen many men in my life," Swift Arrow said. "Good men, bad men, brave men, coward men. But I have never seen white man who shows mercy to one who betrayed him, who forgives when he could demand revenge, who chooses honor over anger." He reached out and gripped Tom's arm with surprising strength. "You are not white man anymore in my eyes. You are warrior. You are brother. You are Apache in all ways that matter." Tom felt something break open in his chest, some wall he'd built around his heart after Sarah and Emma died, after he'd killed Marcus Donovan and lost his life in Texas. Something warm and painful and beautiful flooded through the cracks. "Brother," he said, his voice rough with emotion. That night, Gray Wolf called a council. The whole village gathered around the central fire as the sun set and the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky. Tom stood before them, using the broken Apache he'd learned, mixed with English, that Running Bear translated, no longer ashamed but proud to be the old man's voice. "Cutter is coming," Tom said. "He has 4 men with him, maybe more by now. They have rifles, ammunition, and experience. But more dangerous than any of that, they have hate. Cutter lost his family to an Apache raid 5 years ago. His wife and 2 daughters killed and mutilated. That kind of pain, it doesn't heal. It festers. It turns a man into something he never meant to be." He paused, looking around at the faces lit by firelight. "Cutter doesn't just want me. He wants revenge against all Apache, against anyone who helps Apache, against anything that reminds him of what he lost. If I leave, he might follow me. Or he might decide to take his pain out on you instead. Either way, there will be blood." "Then we kill them when they come," a young warrior said, and several others voiced agreement. "Maybe," Tom said. "Or maybe we try something different first. Maybe we give them a choice." Gray Wolf leaned forward. "What choice?" "The truth," Tom said. "I'll face Cutter. I'll tell him my story. I'll tell him yours. I'll give him the chance to see that not all Apache are responsible for what happened to his family, just like not all white men are responsible for what's been done to your people. If he can hear it, if he can choose peace over revenge, then nobody has to die." "And if he cannot hear it?" Gray Wolf asked. Tom's jaw tightened. "Then we fight. But we fight knowing we tried. We fight knowing we offered mercy first. That way, whatever happens, we keep our honor." The debate went on for hours. Some warriors wanted to ambush Cutter's men in the forest, take them out before they could threaten the village. Others wanted to flee deeper into the mountains, avoid the confrontation entirely. But slowly, voices began to agree with Tom's plan. Try peace first. Keep the moral high ground. Fight only as a last resort. It was Kaya who finally settled it. She stood, and everyone fell quiet to hear the shaman's daughter speak. "My people have been hunted like animals for many years," she said, her voice carrying in the still night. "We have fought when we must, fled when we could, and died when we had no choice. But always we have kept our honor. We have not become the monsters others say we are." She looked at Tom, and her eyes held both love and fierce determination. "This man, my sacred husband, he offers us a path that keeps our honor intact. He offers us a chance to show that we are people of peace, not war, that we kill only when there is no other choice. I say we take that chance. I say we stand with him and offer Cutter the choice between peace and war. And if he chooses war, then we show him what Apache warriors can do." A cheer went up from the crowd, and Tom felt his heart swell with pride and fear in equal measure. They were trusting him, believing in him, following his lead. He just hoped he was leading them toward life and not death. After the council dispersed, Tom found himself alone with Kaya by the creek. The water moved softly over stones, catching starlight and reflecting it back like scattered diamonds. Somewhere an owl called, and another answered. "Are you afraid?" Kaya asked. "Terrified," Tom admitted. "Not of dying. I made my peace with death a long time ago. But of failing you, of failing your people, of making the wrong choice and getting good people killed." Kaya moved closer, her shoulder pressing against his in the darkness. "You have already saved me. You have shown my people mercy and honor. You have forgiven betrayal and chosen courage over fear. How could you possibly fail more than you have already succeeded?" Tom looked at her, and in the starlight, she was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with features and everything to do with spirit. Strong and wise and brave. Everything he thought was lost to him when Sarah died. "I'm falling in love with you," he said, the words surprising him even as he spoke them. "I didn't mean to, didn't think I could feel this way again, but I am." Kaya smiled, and it was like the sun coming up. "Good, because I fell in love with you the moment you gave me your coat, when you could have taken anything you wanted, demanded anything from me, but instead you only offered kindness and protection and asked nothing in return. That is when I knew the spirits had chosen right." She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. They sat there in the moonlight, two people from different worlds, bound by something stronger than law or custom or hate. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Kaya said softly, "whatever Cutter brings, we face it together." "Together," Tom agreed, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like hope and starlight and the promise of a future he'd thought he'd lost forever. 5 miles away, in a camp still damp from the storm, Elias Cutter sat by his fire, cleaning his rifle for the 3rd time. His men were asleep, exhausted from fighting the storm and searching for the Apache village. But sleep wouldn't come for Cutter. It never did anymore. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. Mary with her gentle smile and her way of humming while she cooked. Little Sarah with her bright laugh and her collection of smooth river stones. Baby Elizabeth, who'd just learned to walk, toddling around on unsteady legs with her arms out for balance. He touched the locket around his neck, the metal warm from resting against his chest. Inside were their pictures, faded now, but still precious. The only things he had left of the life that had been stolen from him. "Tomorrow," he whispered to the pictures, "tomorrow I start making it right. I'll find Rivers. I'll make him pay for choosing them over his own kind. And maybe, just maybe, that'll be enough. Maybe then I can finally sleep." But even as he said it, a small voice in the back of his mind, the part of him that was still the man he'd been before the raid, whispered doubt. Would killing Tom Rivers bring them back? Would destroying an Apache village full of women and children make the pain stop? Or would it just make him into the very thing he hated? Cutter pushed the thoughts away angrily. He'd come too far to doubt now. He'd spent 5 years tracking down every Apache and Apache sympathizer he could find. He'd made them pay, every one, and he'd keep making them pay until the debt was settled or he was dead. That was justice. That was honor. That was all he had left. The fire burned low. The stars wheeled overhead, and 2 men, both believing they were right, both willing to fight for what they believed in, prepared for a confrontation that would test everything they thought they knew about justice, mercy, and what it meant to be truly human. Dawn was coming, and with it, the moment of truth. Dawn broke over the white mountains in shades of gold and crimson, painting the pines with fire. Tom stood at the eastern edge of the village, watching the sun climb, and thought about all the dawns he'd seen in his life. Dawns before battles in the war, the dawn he'd buried Sarah and Emma, the dawn he'd killed Marcus Donovan. Each one had changed him, shaped him into someone new. This dawn felt different. This dawn felt like the end of running and the beginning of something else. He just hoped that something else wasn't death. "You did not sleep," Grey Wolf said, appearing beside him like a spirit materializing from the morning mist. "Couldn't," Tom admitted. "Too much thinking." "Thinking is good. Thinking too much is dangerous." Grey Wolf sat on a rock, his old bones creaking. In war, and this is war, whether we want it or not, the man who thinks too much hesitates. The man who hesitates dies. "I'm not worried about dying." "I know. You worry about living, about what comes after, about whether your choice will save lives or cost them." Grey Wolf looked at him with those ancient, knowing eyes. "That is burden of leadership. You have become leader here, whether you meant to or not. My people look to you now. They trust your judgment." "They shouldn't," Tom said. "I'm just a man trying to do right. I don't have any special wisdom." "That is exactly why they should trust you. A man who knows he does not have all answers is wiser than one who thinks he does." Grey Wolf stood, placing a hand on Tom's shoulder. "Come, we have much to prepare." The village was already awake, everyone moving with purpose. Women were packing supplies, preparing food that could be eaten quickly. Children were being organized into groups, the youngest ones assigned to hide in a cave system deeper in the mountains if fighting started. Warriors checked weapons, strung bows, counted arrows. Tom walked through it all with Grey Wolf, and everywhere they went, people looked to them for guidance. It was strange being looked at that way. For 3 years, Tom had been invisible, a ghost moving through towns and territories, trying not to be seen. Now he was the center of attention, and the weight of all those trusting eyes pressed on him like a physical thing. Swift Arrow called to them from where he sat propped against a tree, his splinted leg stretched out before him. Despite the pain he must have been in, his face was alert, his eyes sharp. "I cannot fight," Swift Arrow said, frustration clear in his voice. "But I can plan. Let me help." Tom knelt beside him. "What are you thinking?" "Cutter will come from the east. That is where his camp was, and he will follow the sun to navigate. The eastern approach has 3 good defensive positions." Swift Arrow used a stick to draw in the dirt. "Here, where the trail narrows between 2 rock faces. Here, where the creek forces anyone approaching to wade through water. And here, at the final ridge before the village." Tom studied the crude map, his military training kicking in. "If we position archers at the narrow point, they'd have a clear field of fire. Anyone trying to come through would be exposed." "Yes, but that is also a trap for us. If Cutter has rifles, and we know he does, our archers would be in range. It becomes shooting match, and rifles beat bows at distance." "So we don't engage there," Tom said. "We let them pass, let them think they're getting close, then hit them at the creek. The water will slow them down, make their horses nervous. And if they dismount to wade through, they're vulnerable. Swift Arrow nodded. This is good thinking. And at the final ridge, we have the high ground. Even if they make it past the creek, we can rain arrows down on them from safety. They spent the next hour refining the plan, with other warriors joining in, offering suggestions based on their knowledge of the terrain. Running Bear sat quietly at the edge of the group, listening but not speaking. Tom noticed the old man's shame, the way he kept his eyes down, and made a point to ask his opinion. Running Bear, you know these mountains better than anyone. Where would you position our fallback point if we need to retreat? The old man looked up, surprised to be included. There is cave system, half-mile north. Many passages, easy to defend, hard to attack. We store food there already. Women and children go there if fighting starts. Good, Tom said. Can you make sure the path is clear, that everyone knows how to get there quickly? Running Bear nodded, standing straighter. Yes, I do this. I make sure everyone is safe. As he walked away with new purpose in his step, Swift Arrow said quietly, You are wise to give him task. Redemption comes through action, not words. My mama used to say that, Tom replied. Said there's no point in apologizing if you don't change what you do. The morning wore on. Tom worked alongside the warriors, helping to position supplies, to create barriers from fallen logs and stones, to ensure that if fighting came, they'd have every advantage. His back ached, his hands blistered, but the physical work felt good. It kept his mind from spinning in circles. Around midday, Kaya found him hauling stones to reinforce a defensive position. She watched him work for a moment, then said, You need to rest. Eat something. Drink water. I'm fine. You are not fine. You are exhausted and worried and trying to work yourself to death so you do not have to think. She took the stone from his hands and set it down firmly. Come, I have food. Tom wanted to argue, but found he didn't have the energy. He followed her to a quiet spot near her healing lodge, where she'd laid out cornbread, dried meat, and berries. They ate in silence for a while, the food settling the knot in Tom's stomach that he hadn't realized was there. Swift Arrow's leg will heal, Kaya said. The bone is set well. He will walk again, maybe even run, though he may always have a limp. You did good work on him. I learned from the best. My father has been teaching me since I was a small girl. He says healing is most important skill anyone can have because life is precious and should be protected. She looked at Tom. You protect life too, not just with guns, but with choices, with mercy. That is a rare thing. Tom set down the cornbread he'd been eating. What if my mercy gets people killed? What if I'm wrong about Cutter, about giving him a choice? What if he just uses the time to get into a better position and attacks anyway? Then we fight, and we win or we die, Kaya said simply. But at least we know we tried. At least we can face the spirits, knowing we chose honor over fear. She took his hand. You cannot control what Cutter does. You can only control what you do. And what you do is offer peace first. That is not weakness. That is strength. Tom pulled her close, breathing in the scent of sage and smoke that clung to her hair. How did you get so wise? I am daughter of shaman. Wisdom comes with the bloodline. She smiled against his chest. Also, I have very good teacher and sacred husband, who shows me what courage looks like. They sat like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Then a shout from the village pulled them apart. A scout had returned, riding hard, his horse lathered with sweat. Tom and Kaya ran to where Grey Wolf and the warriors were gathering. The scout, A young man named Little Hawk was breathing hard, his eyes wide. 5 men, he said in Apache, which Running Bear quickly translated. 2 miles east, moving slow. They scout trail, looking for traps. The leader, he wears black hat, has scar on face. He stops often, looks at ground, studies everything. Cutter, Tom said. That has to be him. 2 miles gives us maybe an hour before they get here. Gray Wolf turned to the gathered warriors. Take positions, but remember, we do not shoot first. Tom speaks to them, offers peace. Only if they attack do we defend. The warriors dispersed quickly, each knowing their assigned position. Tom watched them go, then turned to Gray Wolf. I should go out to meet him, on the trail before he gets to the village. That way, if it goes bad, the fighting happens away from the women and children. You will not go alone, Swift Arrow called from where he sat. Take 3 warriors with you. Show strength, not weakness. Tom nodded. It made sense. Going alone might look like surrender or fear. Going with a small group showed he was willing to talk, but not afraid to fight. Kaya grabbed his arm. I am coming too. Kaya, no. It's too dangerous. I am healer. If someone is hurt, they need me. Also, I am your wife by our law. I stand with you. Her eyes flashed with determination. You do not tell me no in this. Tom looked at Gray Wolf for support, but the old shaman just smiled. She is my daughter. She has her mother's stubbornness and her father's courage. You will not change her mind. Fine, Tom said, though his stomach twisted with worry. But you stay back. If shooting starts, you get to cover immediately. If shooting starts, everyone gets to cover immediately, Kaya said. That is how not getting shot works. Despite everything, Tom almost laughed. Even facing death, she could make him smile. That was worth more than he could put into words. They gathered their group, Tom, Kaya, and 3 warriors, including Running Deer and Gray Cloud, the 2 who'd been with them when the storm hit. The 5 of them walked out of the village, moving down the eastern trail toward where Little Hawk had spotted Cutter's group. The forest was quiet around them, just the sound of their footsteps and the occasional bird call. Tom's rifle was in his hands, but he'd left the hammer down, showing he didn't intend immediate violence. The warriors carried bows, but with arrows not yet nocked. They walked for maybe 20 minutes before Tom raised his hand, stopping the group. There, he said quietly, pointing ahead. Through the trees, he could see movement. 5 men on horses, moving slowly up the trail. As they got closer, Tom could make out details. The leader wore a black hat and had a long scar running down his left cheek. His eyes were hard, the eyes of a man who'd seen too much and felt too little. Elias Cutter. The other 4 were typical bounty hunters, rough men with rougher morals, the kind who'd kill for money and sleep fine afterward. But it was Cutter who worried Tom. There was something in the man's bearing, in the set of his shoulders, that spoke of intelligence and determination. Cutter spotted them at the same moment Tom spotted him. He raised his hand, stopping his men, then walked his horse forward a few steps. His hand rested on the pistol at his hip, but he didn't draw. "Tom Rivers," Cutter called out. His voice was rough, like gravel in a creek. "I've been looking for you." Tom stepped forward, leaving the others a few paces behind. "Found me. Now what?" "Now you come with me, back to Texas. Face justice for killing Marcus Donovan." "That's not justice," Tom said. "That's revenge for a guilty man who got what he deserved." Cutter's jaw tightened. "That's for a court to decide, not you." Courts in Texas weren't going to give that family a fair trial. You know it, I know it. Donovan was lynching innocent people. I stopped him. I'd do it again. By killing a white man to save colored folk, Cutter spat. By choosing them over your own kind. My own kind? Tom felt anger rising, but pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. My own kind is anyone who's innocent and needs help. Color doesn't matter, or it shouldn't. Cutter's horse shifted, sensing its rider's tension. You're also living with Apaches now, sleeping with one of their women. That makes you a traitor. That makes me a man who found family where I didn't expect to, Tom said. These people took me in when I had nothing. They showed me kindness. They gave me a home. That's more than Texas ever did. Apaches killed my family, Cutter said, and for the first time, his voice cracked. 5 years ago, raid on my ranch. They killed my wife, my 2 little girls, burned my home, left me with nothing but ashes and nightmares. Tom's heart clenched with sympathy, despite everything. I'm sorry for your loss, truly. No man should have to bury his children. But these people didn't kill your family. They weren't even in that territory 5 years ago. They've been hunted, driven from their homes, had their own families killed by soldiers. They're victims just like you. They're Apaches, Cutter said flatly. That's all that matters. No, Tom said, it's not. What matters is individual guilt, individual choice. The people in this village are peaceful. They just want to live free, to raise their children, to survive. Punishing them for what other Apaches did to you is the same as punishing that black family for the color of their skin. It's wrong. You know it's wrong. Cutter was silent for a long moment. Behind him, his men shifted uncomfortably. Tom could see the doubt on some of their faces, the war between duty and conscience. Come back with me to Texas, Cutter finally said. Face trial. If you're innocent like you say, the court will prove it. We both know that's a lie, Tom said. The Donovans own half of Texas. Their money owns the judges, the jury, everything. I'd be dead before the trial even started. Then what do you suggest? I just let you go? Let you live here happy while I live with ghosts? Tom took a deep breath. This was it, the moment everything hung on. I suggest you let go of hate. I suggest you see that killing me won't bring your family back. It won't ease your pain. It'll just add more weight to the burden you already carry. Kaya stepped forward then, and Tom's heart leaped into his throat. She moved to stand beside him, facing Cutter with no fear in her eyes. I lost my mother, she said in careful English. White soldiers killed her 5 years ago, same time you lost your family. I know your pain. I carry same weight. She placed a hand over her heart. But I choose to let love be stronger than hate. I choose to see each person as individual, not as enemy because of their skin. This is only way to heal. This is only way forward. Cutter stared at her, something working in his face. Pain, anger, confusion, all battling for dominance. His hand tightened on his pistol, then relaxed, then tightened again. You got 1 day, he finally said. 1 day to get your things together, say your goodbyes, and come with me peaceful. If you're not waiting at this spot tomorrow at dawn, I'm coming into that village with fire and lead. And everyone there dies. Men, women, children. Everyone. He yanked his horse's head around and rode back to his men. They talked in low voices for a moment, then turned and disappeared back down the trail. Tom stood there, heart pounding, not sure if he'd just won or lost. He is broken man, Kaya said quietly. But not evil man. There is difference. Maybe in one day he finds his way to peace. And if he doesn't? Then tomorrow we fight, Kaya said. And whatever happens, we face it together. They walked back to the village in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Tomorrow, at dawn, one way or another, it would all be decided then. Tom just hoped he'd made the right choice, hoped that mercy wouldn't turn out to be the mistake that got everyone killed. But it was done now. The die was cast. All that remained was waiting for dawn and seeing what Elias Cutter decided. Peace or war, life or death. The next 24 hours would tell the tale. The afternoon sun beat down on the Apache village, but Tom barely felt it. He sat with Grey Wolf and the warriors in a circle, discussing what would happen at dawn. Everyone had opinions. Some wanted to ambush Cutter and his men during the night, strike first while they had the element of surprise. Others wanted to flee deeper into the mountains, disappear like smoke, and let Cutter waste his time searching empty valleys. But Tom knew neither option would work. Cutter was a hunter, a tracker. If they ran, he'd follow. And ambushing him would only prove every hateful thing he believed about Apaches. It would make them the savages he already thought they were. "We wait," Tom said. "We let him come at dawn like he said. We give him the chance to choose peace one more time." "And if he chooses war?" Running Deer asked. "Then we defend ourselves with everything we have," Tom replied. "But we don't shoot first. We don't give him the excuse to say we're the aggressors." Swift Arrow spoke from where he reclined against the tree, his legs still splinted. "Tom is right. We have the moral high ground. That matters, not just for this fight, but for what comes after. If we survive this, word will spread. People will know we tried for peace. That helps our cause." As the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the village, Kaya found Tom standing alone at the edge of the camp, looking out toward where Cutter would come from. "You should eat," she said, offering him a wooden bowl filled with venison stew. Tom took it, but just held it, not eating. "I keep thinking about his daughters. Little girls, probably like Emma. No child deserves to die like that." "No," Kaya agreed. "But his daughters are not the children sleeping in this village tonight. You cannot save the dead. You can only protect the living." "What if talking to him just makes it worse? What if I said the wrong things, and now he's angrier?" Kaya sat beside him. "You offered him truth and mercy. Those are never wrong things. What he does with them is his choice, not your responsibility." They sat in silence as the sun disappeared and stars began to emerge. Around them, the village prepared. Women sang soft songs to calm frightened children. Warriors sharpened weapons and checked bowstrings. Elders prayed to spirits and ancestors for protection. Tom finally ate the stew, realizing he hadn't had food since midday. Kaya leaned against him, her warmth a comfort against the growing cold of the desert night. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said quietly, "I want you to know something. These past days with you have been a gift. Before you came, I was just surviving, just existing day to day. You made me feel alive again. You made me believe in possibility." Tom set down the bowl and pulled her close. "You did the same for me. I was dead inside, just going through motions. You brought me back to life." They kissed then, soft and gentle, a promise made without words. When they pulled apart, Kaya said, "Come, you need rest. Tomorrow will be a hard day." She led him to her lodge, and for the first time since he'd arrived at the village, Tom slept without nightmares. He dreamed instead of a future, of children playing in the sun, of peace between peoples, of a world where color and tribe didn't matter, only character and heart. He woke before dawn to find Kaya already up, preparing herbs and bandages. She worked with quiet efficiency, her face calm despite what the day might bring. "You think there will be wounded?" Tom asked. "I think it is wise to prepare for the worst and hope for the best," she replied. "This is what my father taught me." Tom dressed quickly and checked his rifle. 6 shots loaded, powder dry, action clean. He hoped he wouldn't need it, but hope wasn't a strategy. He had to be ready for whatever came. Outside, the village was already stirring. Warriors took their positions along the defensive points they'd planned. Women and children began the walk to the cave system, Running Bear leading them, his head high now, his shame transforming into protective determination. Grey Wolf appeared, painted for war, his face marked with symbols Tom didn't understand, but that clearly held deep meaning. The old shaman looked at Tom and nodded. "It is time," Grey Wolf said. Tom, Kaya, Grey Wolf, and 5 warriors walked down the trail to the meeting spot as the sky began to lighten in the east. Pink and orange streaked across the horizon, beautiful and terrible. Tom thought about all the dawns he'd seen, all the moments of truth in his life. This felt like the biggest one yet. They reached the clearing where Tom had spoken to Cutter the day before and stopped. The warriors spread out slightly, bows ready but not drawn. Kaya stood beside Tom, her hand in his. Grey Wolf stood on his other side, staff in hand, every inch the spiritual leader. They waited as the sun climbed higher, turning the world from gray to gold. Birds began their morning songs. A deer crossed the trail in the distance, paused to look at them, then bounded away. Then Tom heard it. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses, moving at a walk, coming up the trail. Cutter appeared first, still wearing his black hat, his scar vivid in the morning light. Behind him rode his 4 men, all armed, all looking nervous. They stopped 20 feet away. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The 2 groups just stared at each other across that small distance that might as well have been a canyon. Finally, Cutter dismounted. His men started to follow, but he waved them back. He walked forward alone until he stood 10 feet from Tom. "You came," Tom said. "Said I would." Cutter's eyes moved from Tom to Kaya to Grey Wolf and back. "Spent all night thinking about what you said, about individual guilt, about hate." "And?" Cutter's hand moved toward his pistol, and every Apache warrior tensed. But Cutter just unbuckled his gun belt and let it fall to the ground. "And I realized something," Cutter said, his voice rough with emotion. "I've been hunting Apaches for 5 years. Killed maybe a dozen. Turned in 6 men like you who sympathized with them. And you know what? My wife is still dead. My daughters are still gone. The hole in my chest is still there, just as big as the day I buried them." Tom hardly dared breathe. "I thought revenge would make it better," Cutter continued. "Thought if I just killed enough of them, hurt enough people who helped them, I'd feel something other than this emptiness. But I don't. I just feel more empty, more alone." Behind Cutter, one of his men, the younger one Tom recognized as Pete, spoke up. "Boss, what are you saying?" Cutter turned to face his men. "I'm saying I'm done. Done hunting. Done killing. Done trying to fill a hole that can't be filled with blood." Jake, the older bounty hunter, shook his head. "You gone soft? $500 is waiting for us in Texas." "Then go collect it," Cutter said. "Turn me in if you want. Tell them I've gone mad, lost my nerve, Whatever. I don't care anymore. I'm tired, Jake. Tired of hate. Tired of pain. Just tired." The four men looked at each other, confusion and doubt written across their faces. Finally, Jake shrugged. "We came here for you, boss. For the money, yeah, but also because you were our friend. If you're done, we're done." Pete nodded. "Sides, I never felt right about hunting a man for doing the right thing." Cutter turned back to Tom. "I can't say I forgive you for siding with Apaches. That's still a bitter pill. But I can say I understand why you did it. And I can say that killing you won't bring my family back." He looked at Kaya. "You said you lost your mother, that you chose love over hate. How? How do you do that when the pain is so strong?" Kaya stepped forward, releasing Tom's hand. "I remember her. Not how she died, but how she lived. She taught me to heal, to help, to see good in people. If I spend my life hating all white people because white soldiers killed her, I dishonor her memory. She would want me to heal, not hurt." Cutter's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "My wife, Mary. She was kind. Kindest woman I ever knew. She'd feed any stranger who came to our door, help anyone who needed it. She'd be ashamed of what I've become, of the hate I've carried." "She would also understand," Grey Wolf said, speaking for the first time. His English was slow but clear. "Grief makes us lose our way, but path back is always there, waiting. You just have to choose to walk it." Cutter looked at the old shaman, then back at Tom. "What happens now?" Tom thought about it. "Now, you make a choice. You can ride to Texas and turn me in, collect your bounty. I won't fight you. Or you can ride away from all this, start fresh somewhere else. Find a life that honors your family instead of dishonoring their memory with more killing." "What would you do?" Cutter asked. "If you were me?" "I'd go somewhere new," Tom said. "California, maybe. Oregon. Somewhere without ghosts. I'd find work that helps people instead of hurts them. I'd try to become the man my family would be proud of, not the man my pain made me into." Cutter was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "California. I always wanted to see the ocean. Mary did too. Maybe I could see it for her." He bent and picked up his gun belt, and the Apache warriors tensed again. But Cutter just walked back to his horse and hung the belt on his saddle horn. He swung up into the saddle and looked at his men. "Any of you want to come with me to California?" All four raised their hands. Cutter managed a small smile, the first Tom had seen on his face. "Then let's go see the ocean." But before he turned his horse, he looked back at Tom one more time. "Rivers, I'm not saying we're friends. I'm not saying I agree with your choices. But I am saying you're a better man than me. You chose courage over fear, love over hate. That takes strength I don't have." "You have it," Tom said. "You just proved it by choosing to walk away." Cutter touched his hat in salute, then turned his horse west. His four men followed. Tom, Kaya, Grey Wolf, and the warriors stood and watched them ride away until they disappeared into the trees. When they were gone, Tom felt his knees go weak. Kaya caught him, held him up, and he realized he was shaking. "It's over," she said. "You did it. You chose peace, and it worked." Grey Wolf placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "The spirits were with us today, or perhaps just common sense and tired hearts. Either way, we are blessed." They walked back to the village together, and as word spread that the threat was over, that Cutter had chosen peace, the celebration began. Women emerged from the caves with children. Warriors lowered their weapons. Someone started a fire and began cooking food for a feast. Swift Arrow called Tom over, his face split in a wide grin. "You talked bounty hunter out of bounty. That is magic, brother, strong magic." "Not magic," Tom said. "Just truth. And maybe a little luck." "Truth is strongest magic there is," Swift Arrow replied. That evening, as the sun set and the feast began, Tom sat with Kaya, watching the village come alive with joy. Children played, their laughter like music. Warriors told stories, their voices rising and falling. Elders sang old songs, their voices cracked but beautiful. Gray Wolf stood and called for silence. When everyone was quiet, he spoke in Apache, with Running Bear translating for Tom.
Today we saw what is possible when we choose courage over fear, peace over war.
This man, Tom Rivers, who came to us as stranger, has shown us what it means to walk between worlds with honor. He has proven that the color of skin matters less than the content of character. He has shown that mercy is not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. Gray Wolf pulled Tom to his feet. "The spirits chose him to be sacred husband to my daughter. Today, I see the wisdom of their choice. He is not just her husband now. He is son to me, brother to all warriors, father to all children of this village. He is Apache in all ways that matter." The villagers cheered, and Tom felt emotion well up in his chest. These people, who had every reason to hate him, to distrust him, had instead given him everything: family, home, purpose, love. Kaya stood beside him and took his hand. "You saved me," she said softly, her voice only for him. "But I think maybe we saved each other." Tom pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "I think you're right." As the stars emerged overhead and the fire burned bright, Tom Rivers thought about the long journey that had brought him here. From Texas to Arizona, from outlaw to sacred husband, from running away to standing still. He thought about Sarah and Emma, and for the first time in 3 years, the memory didn't hurt. He could remember them with love instead of pain, could honor them by living well instead of running forever. He thought about Elias Cutter, riding toward California and a new life. About how easily he could have become Cutter, could have let grief turn him into something twisted and broken. About how close they'd both come to destroying each other. But instead, they'd chosen differently. They'd chosen to listen, to understand, to see each other as human beings instead of enemies. And that choice had saved lives, maybe including their own souls. "What are you thinking?" Kaya asked. "I'm thinking about the future," Tom said. "About building something here. About teaching children, maybe helping bridge the gap between your people and mine. About making a difference." "That sounds good," Kaya said. "That sounds right." Swift Arrow limped over, leaning on a crutch Running Bear had made for him. "Brother, I have been thinking. When my leg heals, we should go to Tucson, meet with Marshal Hayes, show him that Apache can be trusted, that peace is possible." "That's a good idea," Tom said. "A really good idea." "And I will come too," Kaya said. "Show them that Apache women are healers, not savages, that we have much to teach as well as learn." Gray Wolf joined them, his face thoughtful. "A new path opens before us. Not easy path. There will still be those who hate, who fear, who want war. But we have shown today that another way is possible. That is seed that can grow into something beautiful." As the night deepened and the celebration continued, Tom Rivers sat surrounded by family, by love, by hope. He'd spent 3 years running from his past, trying to escape the consequences of doing what was right. But he wasn't running anymore. He'd found his place. He'd found his people. He'd found himself. The journey from outlaw to sacred husband was complete. But the journey of building a life, of making peace between worlds, of raising children who would know both cultures and love both equally, that journey was just beginning. And Tom Rivers was ready for it. With Kaya by his side, with Swift Arrow as his brother, with Grey Wolf as his father, with a whole village as his family, he was ready for anything. The stars wheeled overhead, the fire crackled, and somewhere in the mountains, a new day was already preparing to dawn. A day of hope instead of fear, of peace instead of war, of love instead of hate. It had started with a scream in the desert and a stranger's choice to help. It had grown into something beautiful and sacred, something that proved the spirits, or fate, or simple human decency could still work miracles in a hard world. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they celebrated, and that was enough. 3 months had passed since Elias Cutter rode away toward California and a new life. 3 months of peace, of building, of watching something beautiful grow from the seeds planted that morning when mercy triumphed over hate. Tom stood at the eastern edge of the village in the early morning light, watching the sun paint the white mountains in shades of gold. The air was crisp with the promise of autumn, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. Behind him, the village was waking, children's laughter mixing with the low voices of women preparing breakfast, and men discussing the day's work. So much had changed, and yet, in the ways that mattered most, everything was exactly as it should be. "You are thinking again," Kaya said, appearing beside him with 2 cups of sage tea. She handed him one, steam rising in the cool air. "I can always tell. You get this look on your face, like you are somewhere far away." Tom took the tea gratefully, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "Just remembering. 3 months ago, I thought I might die on that trail. Thought Cutter would choose war, and it would all end in blood. But you chose peace first," Kaya said, "and that choice changed everything." She was right. The confrontation with Cutter had become a story told around fires, shared between villages, spreading through the Apache bands like wildfire. The story of how Tom Rivers, the white man with the sacred bond, had talked down a bounty hunter through truth and mercy. How an Apache village had stood ready to fight, but offered peace instead. How enemies had walked away as something other than enemies, if not quite friends. Word had reached other Apache groups. Word had reached Tucson and the settlements beyond. And slowly, carefully, like a deer approaching a waterhole, change had begun. Marshal Clayton Hayes had visited twice, bringing news and cautious optimism. The territorial governor was interested in the Apache village that had shown restraint, that had proven they weren't the savages so many believed them to be. There was talk of a treaty, of protected lands, of a chance for peace that didn't involve reservations and broken promises. It was slow, it was fragile, but it was real. Tom finished his tea and set the cup down on a flat rock. "Hayes is coming again today. Said he had news." "Good news or bad news?" Kaya asked. "He didn't say, but he's bringing old Sam with him, so it can't be all bad. Sam wouldn't make the trip for nothing." Kaya smiled. The friendship between Tom and Sam had grown over the past months, with the old shopkeeper making the journey from Tucson once a month to bring supplies, share gossip, and play chess with Tom on a board Sam had carved himself. The chess games had become something of an event in the village, with warriors and children gathering to watch and offer suggestions that both men politely ignored. "I should help prepare food for guests," Kaya said. "Hayes will be hungry from the ride." Tom watched her go, marveling as he did every day at the miracle of her. She moved with quiet confidence through the village, respected by everyone, her skills as a healer growing legendary. Just last week, she'd saved a child who'd fallen from a tree and stopped breathing, using techniques her father had taught her, combined with methods Tom had learned in the army. The child was running and playing again now, showing off a scar he claimed made him look like a warrior.
Swift Arrow limped up, leaning on his walking stick. The leg had healed well, just as Kaya had predicted, though he'd always have a slight limp. He'd turned it into a badge of honor, telling anyone who'd listen about the storm and the mountain lion and Tom carrying him for miles. "Brother," Swift Arrow said, settling onto the rock beside Tom, "I have been thinking about your idea, about the school." Tom had proposed it a month ago, the idea coming to him during one of his chess games with Sam. A school that would teach both Apache and English, both traditional ways and new skills. A place where Apache children could learn to navigate the white man's world without losing their own culture. "And?" Tom asked. "And I think it is a good idea. I will help. I can teach tracking, hunting, warrior skills. You teach reading, writing, English. Kaya teaches healing. Between us, we give children tools to survive in both worlds." Grey Wolf approves? He more than approves. He says it is an answer to prayer that he's been praying for years. Way to protect our culture while preparing for future that is coming, whether we want it or not. Swift Arrow paused. He also says you should be the one to tell Hayes about it. White man listens better to white man, even when that white man has Apache heart. Tom nodded slowly. It was true, unfortunately. Despite everything, despite the changes, there were still many in Tucson and beyond who saw Apaches as less than human. But they might listen to Tom Rivers, the Union scout, the man who'd chosen honor over easy money. It was a burden he'd learned to carry. Being the bridge between worlds meant standing with one foot in each, never fully belonging to either, but essential to both. Around mid-morning, the lookouts called that riders were approaching. Tom and Grey Wolf walked down to meet them, accompanied by Swift Arrow and Running Bear. The old man had become one of Tom's staunchest supporters, his redemption complete through months of tireless work for the village. Marshal Hayes rode at the front, his badge gleaming in the sunlight. Beside him was old Sam, grinning beneath his wide-brimmed hat. But there was a third rider, a man Tom didn't recognize. He was younger, maybe 30, with the look of someone who spent his days behind a desk rather than in the saddle. They dismounted, and Hayes made introductions. "Tom, this is James Whitfield. He's a representative from the Territorial Governor's office." Whitfield extended his hand, and Tom shook it. The man had a firm grip and direct eyes. "Mr. Rivers, I've heard a lot about you. The governor is very interested in what you've accomplished here." They walked to the village center, where Kaya had prepared food and laid out blankets for sitting. The formality of it reminded Tom of treaty negotiations he'd witnessed during the war, and he supposed this was a kind of treaty in its own right. Once they were settled and food had been shared, Whitfield got down to business. "The governor has been following the developments here with great interest. Your confrontation with Elias Cutter, peaceful resolution of what could have been a massacre, the cooperation between your village and Tucson, all of it has impressed him greatly." "We just did what was right," Tom said. "That's exactly what makes it impressive," Whitfield replied. "Doing what's right is rarer than it should be. The governor wants to propose something, a formal peace agreement.
This village would be recognized as sovereign territory. You'd be protected from forced relocation. In exchange, you'd agree to certain terms. No raids on settlements. Cooperation with law enforcement when crimes occur. And perhaps most importantly, you'd serve as an example.
Proof that coexistence is possible. Grey Wolf had been listening intently, Running Bear translating softly. Now the old shaman spoke, his voice carrying weight. "We have never wanted war," Grey Wolf said through Running Bear. "We only wanted to live free, to raise our children, to keep our ways. If white man's law will let us do this, we will keep peace. This we swear on spirits of our ancestors." Whitfield pulled out papers from his saddlebag. "I have a draft agreement here. I'd like you to read it, consider it, discuss it with your people. There's no rush. Take the time you need to make the right decision." Tom took the papers, noting the official seal at the top. "What about other Apache bands? Will they get the same offer? If this works, if this village can prove that peaceful coexistence is sustainable, then yes. The governor wants to extend similar agreements to other groups, but you'd be the first, the test case." "No pressure then," Tom said with a slight smile. Old Sam laughed. "That's our Tom, saving the whole Apache nation with just a little peace treaty. Small task for a Tuesday." The tension broke, and even Whitfield smiled. They spent the next hour going over the agreement, discussing terms, asking questions. It wasn't perfect. There were clauses Tom didn't like, provisions that felt like they gave too much power to the territorial government. But it was better than the alternative, better than war, better than reservations where people died of disease and despair. After Hayes, Sam, and Whitfield left, with promises to return in a week for the village's decision, Tom called a council. Every adult in the village gathered, and the debate went long into the night. Some were suspicious. White men had made promises before and broken them. Why should this time be different? Others were hopeful. This was a chance to secure their future, to protect their children, to live without constant fear of soldiers coming to drive them out. Tom listened to all of it, adding his thoughts when asked, but mostly letting the Apache people decide their own fate. This was their land, their lives, their choice. It was Running Bear who finally settled it. The old man stood, his voice steady and strong. "I betrayed this village once out of fear," he said. "I thought protecting us meant hiding, running, always being afraid. But I was wrong. Tom Rivers showed me that real protection comes from courage, from standing tall and demanding respect. This treaty, it is not perfect, but it is white man saying we have right to exist, right to our land, right to our ways. That is something our ancestors never had. I say we take this chance. We sign the treaty, and if white man breaks it, at least we know we tried peace first." The vote was nearly unanimous. 1 week later, when Hayes returned with Whitfield and 2 other officials, Grey Wolf signed the treaty on behalf of the village. Tom signed as witness, his hand steady, knowing they were writing history. But the real celebration came that evening, when Grey Wolf called the village together for another reason entirely. Tom stood beside Kaya, wondering what her father had planned. The old shaman had been secretive all day, a slight smile playing at his lips whenever Tom asked what was happening. Grey Wolf raised his hands for silence, and the gathered villagers quieted immediately. 3 months ago, the spirits brought us Tom Rivers. We named him Sacred Husband to my daughter through the old ways, the binding that comes from saving a life. But today, I wish to make it official in all ways. Today, I ask if Tom Rivers and my daughter Kaya wish to marry not just by spirit law,
but by the law of our people and his people both." Tom's heart jumped. He looked at Kaya, whose eyes were shining with tears. "I did not know fathers could ask such things," Kaya said, laughing and crying at the same time. "But yes, I wish this." Tom found his voice. "I would be honored, more honored than I have words to express." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything Tom had experienced. Part Apache tradition, part Christian elements borrowed from the missionaries who'd passed through years ago, part something entirely new. Grey Wolf presided, his voice strong and sure, as he spoke of bonds that transcended culture and color, of love that built bridges between worlds. Swift Arrow stood as Tom's best man, grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. Sam, who'd stayed for the treaty signing, stood as witness, wiping tears from his eyes and muttering about dust getting in them. When Grey Wolf pronounced them married in the eyes of spirits, ancestors, and the living alike, Tom kissed Kaya as the village erupted in cheers. It felt like coming home. It felt like every piece of his broken life finally clicking into place. That night, as stars wheeled overhead and the celebration fire burned low, Tom and Kaya walked to their favorite spot by the creek. They sat on the smooth rocks, listening to water sing over stone. "Do you ever regret it?" Kaya asked. "Saving me that day? It changed your whole life." "It saved my life," Tom said. "I was dead inside before I met you. Just going through motions, waiting to die. You made me want to live again." Kaya leaned her head on his shoulder. "I have something to tell you. Something I have known for a few weeks but wanted to wait for right time." Tom's heart quickened. "What is it?" "I am with child," Kaya said softly. "We are going to have a baby." Tom couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He'd had a daughter once, little Emma, taken by fever before she could grow. The thought of another child, of getting that chance again, overwhelmed him completely. "Tom?" Kaya said, worried by his silence. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it," Tom managed, his voice thick with emotion. He pulled her close, resting his hand gently on her still flat belly. "A child, our child, growing up between two worlds, speaking two languages, belonging to both." "Or belonging to neither," Kaya said. "That is my fear. That our child will be too white for Apache, too Apache for white. That they will never fit anywhere." "They'll fit here," Tom said firmly. "In this village that's learning to bridge worlds. And we'll teach them to be proud of both halves, to see their mixed heritage as strength, not weakness. They'll be the first of something new, something better." Kaya kissed him softly. "You always know the right thing to say." "I've had good teachers," Tom replied, thinking of Grey Wolf, of Swift Arrow, of all the people who'd taken a broken, running man and shown him what it meant to stand still and build something lasting. The months that followed brought more changes. The school opened in a structure the village built together, with Tom, Swift Arrow, and Kaya as the primary teachers. Children came not just from their village, but from other Apache bands who had heard about the treaty and wanted their children to learn these new skills. Marshal Hayes became a regular visitor, bringing news and increasingly treating the village not as a threat to be managed, but as a community to be protected. When a group of settlers tried to encroach on the treaty lands, it was Hayes who drove them off and filed charges. Old Sam opened a trading post on the edge of the village territory, a place where Apache could trade furs and crafts for goods they needed. It became a meeting point, a place where cultures mixed and people learned that the other wasn't so different after all. Elias Cutter sent a letter. It arrived via Sam, postmarked from San Francisco.
In it, Cutter wrote about seeing the ocean, about how vast and beautiful it was, about how standing at the edge of the continent made his problems feel small. He'd found work on a fishing boat, he said. Hard work, honest work. He was learning to live again instead of just existing in his grief. "I'll never be whole," he wrote. "The hole my family left will always be there, but I'm learning to live around it instead of drowning in it. Thank you for showing me that was possible. Tell the Apache woman who lost her mother that she was right. Love is stronger than hate. It just takes longer to work." Tom showed the letter to Kaya, and they both cried. Not from sadness, but from the beauty of redemption, of second chances, of choosing growth over grief. As Kaya's pregnancy progressed, the village rallied around them. Women shared wisdom about childbirth and child-rearing. Men carved toys and made a cradle. Grey Wolf prepared blessings and protective charms, drawing on generations of tradition to welcome this new life that would bridge two worlds. On a cold January morning, as snow dusted the pines and turned the world white and clean, Kaya went into labor. Tom paced outside the birth lodge, Swift Arrow beside him. "You look like you are about to face army, not welcome child," Swift Arrow observed. "I'm terrified," Tom admitted. "What if something goes wrong? What if I'm not a good father? What if you trust that the spirits who brought you here will see you through this, too?" Swift Arrow interrupted. "You have faced bounty hunters, talked down armed men, built peace between peoples. You can handle one small baby." The hours passed slowly. Tom heard Kaya's cries and wanted to burst in, to help, to do something. But this was women's work, Grey Wolf had firmly told him. His job was to wait and to trust. Finally, as the sun reached its peak, a baby's cry split the air, strong and loud and perfect. One of the attending women emerged, smiling. "You have son, strong boy with good lungs. Mother is well. Come meet your child." Tom entered the lodge on shaking legs. Kaya lay on a bed of furs, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft deer hide. She looked up at Tom and smiled. "Meet your son," she said. Tom took the baby carefully, awkwardly, afraid he might break something so small and perfect. The baby boy had a shock of dark hair and eyes that, though unfocused, seemed to look right at him. He had Kaya's nose and Tom's chin, and something entirely his own. "He's beautiful," Tom whispered. "What should we name him?" Kaya asked. Tom thought about it, about all the people who'd brought them to this moment, about the journey that had led him from Texas to this mountain village, about the future this child represented. "Michael," Tom said. "It means one who is like God in Hebrew. My mother's father was named Michael. He was the best man I ever knew." "And in Apache?" Kaya asked. "He should have Apache name too." Grey Wolf entered the lodge, having waited respectfully outside until invited. He looked at his grandson with eyes full of tears and wonder. "Nahilzai," Grey Wolf said. "It means he who brings people together, because that is what he will do. He will be living bridge between your people and ours." "Michael Nahilzai Rivers," Tom said, trying out the full name. "It's perfect." The baby yawned, a tiny, perfect yawn, and settled into sleep in his father's arms. That night, as the village celebrated the birth with a feast, Tom sat with his son while Kaya rested. He looked at the small face, so peaceful in sleep, and made promises in the quiet of his heart. I will teach you to be strong but kind, brave but merciful, to stand for what's right even when it costs you everything, to see people as individuals, not as colors or tribes, to build bridges instead of walls,
to choose love over hate, always and forever. Swift Arrow appeared, looking down at the sleeping baby. He has good face, strong face. He will be great warrior, or great healer, Kaya said from where she rested, or great teacher, or all three, or something we haven't even imagined yet, Tom added. The world is changing. By the time he's grown, who knows what will be possible? Grey Wolf joined them, his face thoughtful. I have lived long life. I have seen much pain, much loss. But I have also seen this. I have seen white man and Apache woman create life together. I have seen treaty signed in peace, not imposed by war. I have seen school where children of two cultures learn together. These are things I never thought I would see. They give me hope that the future my grandson will inherit is better than the past we have lived.
As the celebration continued around them, as friends and family came to marvel at the baby and offer blessings, Tom Rivers thought about the incredible journey that had brought him here. It had started with a scream in the desert and a choice to help. It had grown through trust and courage and mercy. It had survived tests of hate and fear, and it had blossomed into something beautiful and lasting. He was no longer the broken man who'd fled Texas 3.5 years ago. He was a husband, a father, a teacher, a bridge builder. He was Apache and white, belonging fully to both worlds because he honored both equally. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had witnessed his flight, his despair, his redemption. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks into the night sky like prayers ascending. Tom looked at his sleeping son, at his exhausted wife, at the family and friends surrounding them, and knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The journey from outlaw to sacred husband was complete. But the journey of raising a child who would carry both cultures forward, of building a peace that would outlast them all, of proving that love could triumph over hate and hope could overcome despair, that journey was just beginning. And Tom Rivers was ready. With Kaya by his side, with Michael in his arms, with a village as his family, and two cultures as his heritage, he was ready for anything. The future stretched before them, unknown and uncertain, but full of possibility. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.